The Bruins are.
This is Maurice Jones-Drew, and you're listening to the What's Bruin Show.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, UCLA, fight, fight, fight.
You're listening to the What's Bruin Show, part of the What's Bruin Show Network, with your hosts, Jake Merrifield, Bill Shirley, Jamaal Artis, and Mike Regalado, bringing you anything and everything UCLA sports. And now, it's time for the What's Bruin Show.
Well, hello, and welcome to What's Bruin. I'm your host, Jake Merrifield, and I'm coming to you the Tuesday after the latest worst loss in UCLA history. This one to the Cal Golden Bears. Co-host Jamal is very happy. We'll bring him on.
Go
in a minute.
Bears!
Yeah, shut up, Jamal. This is the What's Bruin Show on the What's Bruin Show Network, the symposium. It would be a symposium. I'm not having a drink tonight. I think Mike and Jamal are. But we are on Twitter at What's Bruin Show, Instagram at What's Bruin Show, email what'sbruinshow@gmail.com. Got a nice email for us tonight. On Substack, what'sbruin.substack.com. For just $2 a month, you can subscribe on Patreon. How much, Mike?
$2.
$2.
Sorry, I'm having chips.
Yeah,
I'm pulling a bill and having some chips.
you're doing great. Yeah, everybody's remote today. Life is stupid, and we have two people on the phone, and the show will be a little.
You sound defeated,
herky-jerky.
Jake.
Huh? I am a little bit defeated.
You
It's
sound
okay.
defeated.
It is. Yeah. Just, it's fine.
And Jamal, quick question for you, Jamal. Would you be angry that Cal beat UCLA?
Yeah, because no, because I thought it was the end of Chip, but I guess not. I guess we can discuss that about the stuff that came out after the WB2.
Yeah, we're not there yet.
Because I know Jake speculated.
Totally a lose-lose situation there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Cal's going bowling, so we're happy for them. Your WBS merch is available on my locker site. Look in the show notes. Call the hotline 805-399-4WBS. Second Arena Troy. And but enough of this nonsense. You can listen to my post game of the Cal game, the disaster that was. I wasn't able to go in person with Megan. That was a shame. But they got their asses beat. We'll talk about it in just a moment. But I did publish an hour-long show with a lot of your calls on it. Thank you, everybody who called for that show. But that happened. And now we'll get on with first of all, I have two friends here, co-hosts. One's Jamaal Artis, Champs over 1015 on Twitter, the Cal Golden Bear. I'll introduce him first since he's the victor. Jamaal, how are you doing tonight?
Oh, I'm doing peachy. Long couple days of work, but I'm feeling good now. I'm ready to talk. Let's talk some football.
Good. You two can talk. I'll sit back and listen to you grouse. But we also have Mike Regalado, Bruin Report Online, and
Mike Regalado,
founding member of the What's Bruin Show here. Mike, how are you doing?
Good, thank you. Jamal, should we send someone over to check on Jake? He sounds rough.
Exactly. Well, this is why it's 7:30 and I still barely called you guys. I got, it's like, we could have. I should just
I know, Jake.
had you guys tape your own phone call to each other.
Horrible, crappy weekend.
Yeah, that's all right.
Stupidness and depravity and self-loathing and what.
I don't know what y'all are talking about. I don't know what y'all are talking about. The weekend went great for me.
Yeah,
it was amazing.
Nothing going on over here. No, it's fine. And
Check out my tweets. Check out my tweets, listeners, if you want to know how my weekend went.
Yeah, seriously. Like, I honestly thought you would have been on a damn it, Cal. I wanted Wilcox fired type of situation, but a win's a win, I guess.
Yeah,
last week I
the Bruins with impunity.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I can't play it.
Emily Watson tonight. Nope. Shut her British butt up.
Hey, you leave her alone. Emily Mortimer's a gem.
Or Mortimer Watson, whatever.
All right.
Whatever.
Well, whatever. Let's get on with this. All right.
Blue 32, California, hood, hey! Football. Sometimes it's hard to be a Bruin. Giving all your love to just one team.
So UCLA ended the season at the Rose Bowl with a second consecutive loss at the Rose Bowl, a second consecutive loss in which they were, fairly heavy favorites. And the I don't know what else to say about it. They lost 33-7. Mike was there. I was not. Jamaal was watching from Tucson. And like I said, I already did a post game, so you heard what I thought about it generally. But Mikey, give us just your thoughts on the game. Let's not get into the chip situation yet. Hold your water on that. We'll talk about that separately. But just within the confines of this game, Mike and then Jamaal, please discuss.
Well, first off, with Garber starting, I honestly thought UCLA had a chance to have a very methodical win. Every time he's started and played heavy minutes for UCLA, they have found a way to just move the ball simply, easily. That seemed to be the case, except for the fact that at the end of the first drive, while they were, I think they were just outside the red zone, Garber's, throws a ball and takes a helmet to his bicep, it looked like, ending his night. Bringing in Dante Moore, who is still Dante Moore. On his first drive, he had an interception, and it was just kind of like, well, here we go again. There's just no answer. There's no scheme to help out Dante Moore, put him in the best position.
There's
Jake,
not.
You were on top of.
There's not.
Yeah. The fact that Moore actually was pretty impressive just from the numbers. If you just look at the numbers, it's pretty impressive. 23 for 38, 266 yards, but 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. And that does not translate well to a team that just lost 33-7. You would think that a quarterback with those numbers might do a little bit better, at least have a rushing scheme. And he was sacked 6 times. Offensive line, pass coverage, whatever it is, was not up to snuff. And Cal figured that out, and they just put the hurt on UCLA. But yeah, no, I was going to say that, you called it, like, I think it was like halfway through the second quarter or right before halftime, how UCLA was passing more than they were running, and which is just weird because with Moore having troubles with some passes and just not getting into the end zone, why would you not run it more?
It's
and
infuriating.
I understand, maybe that's in theory, like that's probably why. I was thinking that maybe Chip Kelly was thinking that Tedford would be thinking, oh, they're going to run more, so let's do some more run coverage. But it just, but then you look back at the numbers too. As a team, UCLA only averaged 1.9, and that's with Dante Moore having a net rushing yardage of -35. But even the run game wasn't that great. I think it was doing a little bit better than the passing game, but just nothing was freaking working for UCLA, and especially just red zone situations, just gone, just disappeared. Like it was just so bizarre how UCLA could put together such an offensive game plan against USC last week and come out looking like they did against ASU, just like oh well. It appeared as if this offense was down to the third string and at every position, and they're just trying to salvage some sort of victory, and it just fell flat, and there was just nothing there for UCLA.
It really was frustrating, and I don't know why they couldn't adjust or manage to score more than 7 points in this game. It felt like they should have been able to, and it felt like the approach to the game plan was just ridiculous. But Jamaal, what'd you think about it?
Well, I mean, it was a game of big plays. Cal made the big plays. UCLA couldn't. There was Moore comes in and they immediately intercept the ball on his very first play. They actually drove down. I can't remember. That was his drive or the next drive where they got a catch deep on the UCLA secondary and drove into the red zone area, and then they were able to get a field goal Then, of course, the big play, UCLA actually scores. There was 5.5 minutes left before halftime. Finally up 7-6. It looks like they're going to have all the momentum. And then Jaden Ott takes it to the house 100 yards in 11 seconds. And that was just the end of it. And, of course, wasn't it the very next series was, I forget the lineman, I want to say Reese, cold-cocked Moore, knocked his helmet off, took the ball away, and then Cal gets another score right before halftime, and that was it. I mean, that was pretty much it.
It really was.
The UCLA was not able to mount anything, even when they were, they get a good drive going, and seemingly the run game would start, and then they try to do something with Moore, and like you said, 6 sacks. Cal would just attack. Olave was really stepped up the last couple of games. And then, by the end of it, Ott kept pounding them. Like, you'll look at his stats. I think in the first half, he only had 3 rushing yards. He ended up with 80. So that means he got 77 in the second half. And that's really what it was. It tired out the defense. Even when Francisco Mendoza would make some boneheaded plays, he threw 2 interceptions. But then he was also able to throw 2 touchdowns to Jeremiah Hunter. And that's really what it came down to, was Cal making the big plays, executing, Mendoza learning from his mistakes, and ultimately humiliating UCLA and their final Pac-12 game.
Yep.
At the Rose Bowl.
And it wasn't just an offensive meltdown; it was a complete special teams disaster as well. All those things combined to make this defense kind of succumb. And I was kind of something I was shaking my head at listening to other people talk about this game and talking about, and there was like some pointless, weird tweets from John Wilner about how this UCLA defense actually wasn't that good, and I was like flummoxed by that. But just
that's crazy. Weren't they like 21st in the nation?
Whatever it is, they're a good defense, and when they have struggled this year, it's been a direct result of the other phases of the game, like getting in their way and causing them problems. But the Bruins had possession in this game 17 minutes in the first half and only like 13 in the second half. That is one of the reasons why the defense finally succumbed. They were constantly put in bad situations. Not to say that the defense was perfect, but I mean, this was offense and special teams wise, this is about as bad of a game as you could possibly get. And I still am just like, look, I'm not the guy who's usually like, oh my gosh, the coach is so stupid. Oh my gosh, you should have done this instead of doing that. That's like the least. That's what generally comes to my mind the least when I'm looking at these games and things. But when you look at this season as a whole, and it just makes me wonder. And one of the reasons why I think we're all so frustrated by the situation is it just feels like we figured out early in conference season that what the approach wasn't really working, but there was never any sort of change or adaptation to that. I remember, so many times during the Chip Kelly era, and especially the first 5, 6, 7 games, you'd be like, okay, well, there would be a segment of every one of our shows, and I'd always look to see what Chris Osgood is looking at coming out of these games, and there'd always be some sort of wrinkle or feature or something that was going on that was the coaches trying to figure out some sort of advantage to get from any particular game. And I swear to God, the last 4 or 5 weeks, there's been almost none of that, and it just has been more like banging your head into the wall. And there's been the excuses of, oh my gosh, we don't have a quarterback, and oh my gosh, all our quarterbacks are hurt. But there also hasn't been any sort of adaptation to what you are, what you're actually trying to deploy out there, and that has been very, very frustrating. But regardless, you're right, Jamaal. The Bruins lose the last Pac-12 game. The Bruins, lose the last 2 Pac-12 games at home. The Bruins lose in their last matchups to their, conference mates of the Arizona schools and Cal to end the season. They lose 3 of 4 to end the season. There's a bunch of bad things we can say about the end of this season, which leaves us all with kind of a bad taste in our mouth. And now we do get to look forward to a buzzless, depressing bowl game down the line somewhere, maybe on the East Coast that nobody will attend. So this really has been a bummer of a season, now that it's done. But we'll talk more about the season as a whole as we go down the line tonight, especially since we're all remote and we're kind of just it's not the ideal situation to do our normal podcast. Let's just deal with the situation at hand, and that is just what's going on with UCLA football as a result of this. And we'll just play the intro again and the tragedy, I guess. I don't know.
Blue 32, Blue 32, California, California, hood, hood, hey! Football.
All right, so everybody was super pissed after the ASU game, and then the SC game happened, and we're all like, well, we're kind of conflicted, but I guess never mind. Okay, everything's cool now, at least for now. I mean, not for everybody, but for some of us, we're like, okay, I guess it's cool. But that was all assuming that the Cal game was going to be a victory, which it wasn't, obviously, because we got our asses beat again by the Cal Golden Bears. Jamaal's all happy over there. And then that reset or restarted the cycle of, oh my God, I can't believe we're still doing this, yada, 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 the vocal UCLA fan base, which I'm not sure how representative that is of the overall UCLA fan base, but it started to begin, culminating with a plane and a banner once again. Not my favorite move by the fan base, and for some reason UCLA has, like, that's our go-to move. I kind of want to know if the same guy is running the same plane every time, and like if he's getting like a rate, and if his rate like expired from the last time he flew the banner around, because I think the last time it was like for Guerrero and the Mick Cronin situation. I feel like that's the last time we saw the banner. Mike, help me out with that.
Alfred, no.
That's what I'm saying.
Not Cronin, Alfred.
Well, I'm saying when they hired Cronin, it was the search was all messy, and it was like all that. Yeah. I mean, not to say that it was about Cronin. It was about, right before we hired Cronin.
Gotcha.
I think that pilot just sits at home waiting for Chip Kelly to fuck up. That's what I was thinking.
I mean, or is the guy like own his own plane? I don't know. But anyways, it's always, I never like to look when we have the banner up over town, but there it is. This one was a reference to, read the room, fire Kelly, or something like that.
Yes, it was literally read the room, fire Kelly.
Anywho, where are you guys at as far as like, I don't know who wants to start. Somebody say something about where we're at with one Chip Kelly.
Jake, you keep saying vocal, and I think this is kind of unified everybody. I feel like everybody's done.
Right?
Man,
yeah, exactly.
I listen to
all of the
calls.
optimists have been not optimistic.
We have a listener in New Jersey who I think we should hire to kick Chip Kelly's ass because he's a world-class wrestler. I mean, he's done. I mean, poor guy was, I forget his name, but he was talking about basically, his favorite thing to do is to watch UCLA football with his son, and he'd rather go watch a Rutgers game. I mean, that to me is everybody.
That's harsh.
They have their own YouTube
cold.
channel, so
That's cold.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm just saying, it's like the optimism, the people who are super vocal on social media, who have a platform. I think it's everybody. I think everybody's looking at this like, what are we doing? We're going to the Big Ten, and we look like we don't look like Iowa or I'm trying to think of somebody who's kind of always flutter. Let's just say Michigan State. Obviously, these last 2 years have been shit. But let's just say, everybody was thinking we're going to be there. Hey, we're not Michigan. We're not Ohio State. We're going to get in there under the radar, and you're going to find us in a New Year's Day bowl because we're going to come in and things are going to change. But now fans are looking at this and like, shit. Are we Nebraska? Are we Maryland? Can we handle being in the Big Ten if Chip Kelly's in charge? And most people are coming to the realization that it doesn't look good. I mean, that's what it is. And I don't think it's just this loud voice. I think even our favorite listeners who go to the games, put time and effort into being at away games and listening to us and hoping with hope that UCLA gets back to better days, and nobody feels that right now, and I'm there with them. I mean, I'm thinking, what are we doing? Can we not get Mark Harmon, Mariska Haggerty, Cash Warren's wife, because Jessica Alba has the money, to like pull some money and just fire this fuck? I'm sorry, gotta curse. You got to have an airplane fly over Los Angeles just to convince these guys to do it? I mean, it's ridiculous. What are we doing? You don't have to be okay with mediocrity. pool $8 million. $8 million is nothing. They just told Jimbo Fisher to go fish in the lake for $76 million. What are we doing? It's beyond, like, are we even being pragmatic anymore? It's just kind of like this weird, stubborn. I know I know there's a logical reason behind it, but it just doesn't feel right to like let this guy continue to sink UCLA into mediocrity. I'm sorry.
Well, there is this, what is, I'm sorry, Mike, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, it's, just to add really quickly, it's gotten so bad that we're not just seeing fire Chip Kelly hashtags, we're seeing fire Martin German hashtags.
Yeah, no, it seems like this has led to an erosion of, like I said, and once again, it's the vocal UCLA fans' confidence in the administration as a whole, really. But, is just a couple questions here to ask. We've been dealing with mediocre UCLA football for 2 decades now, pretty much since I stopped attending UCLA. It's been that long, and I'm getting a little long in the tooth now. But I'm looking at the end of the eras of the last 4 or 5 UCLA coaches. Bob Toledo, in his last 3 years with the Bruins, his last 4 years, he went 4-7, 6-6, 7-4. And then 7-5, and then he got fired. Ed Kazarian coached to a wonderful record of 1-0. Carl Durrell, 7-6 and 6-6 before getting fired. Dwayne Walker took over and lost the Las Vegas Bowl. Rick Neuheisel peaked at 7-6, then went 4-8 and 6-6. And of course, he lost the double Pac-12 title game. I'm sorry, that's not. He lost to Oregon in the first Pac-12 title game. A wonderful distinction. And then Jim Mora went 4-8 and 5-6 before getting fired. Kelly, and like I said, there's a lot of different qualifications we can make, but we could say, as far as like how easy his schedule was. Now he hasn't really beat anybody of note, but he has gone 8-4, 9-4, and 7-5, which is, as much as people want to complain about how on par he is with Neuheisel, Durrell, Toledo, and these other coaches when they've been fired, that part of it is better. And so I guess if you're making a devil's advocate case for why the administration doesn't have a quick hand, what do you say to that? And that, they never fired a coach that beat SC, then they haven't fired a coach that has been turning in winning records. Like, what is your guys' response to all that?
Fire him anyways. 33-33. He's 500 coach. I don't
give
a shit. I don't give a shit if he beat USC 3 years in a row, which he didn't.
He did not.
Way, but it's what two out of the last 3 years. He ended the season on a 3 out of 4 bender where they're losing. Last year he lost his last 2 in a he almost lost his last 3 in a row. He got lucky and beat Cal on some sort of fumble whim or something like that. But then he still went into a bowl game and shit the bed again, and he lost to USC. So it's not parsing numbers, it's just reality. There are just situations where you're looking at it as like, this is just mediocrity.
Yeah, it's like beating USC is ancillary. Like you should. Yeah, you should beat USC, but celebrating a win over a shitty USC team should not be a stepping stone, a milestone to, okay, well, I guess we can keep you, extend you, especially when you come out against a team that, for all intents and purposes, everybody thought UCLA should beat Cal. How do you stay with this? It's shocking. We just said how, like, even the most supportive, optimistic Bruin fans have said, no, this is done. And with even the entire fan base is saying, no, we need, it's time to move on. And then you go and say, and I can see, I'll talk about why I think they're keeping him in a while, but it's just a head scratcher of what is happening here. I don't see this team. I think this team is going to be worse next year, and especially it's not going to be able to compete for a Big Ten conference championship against the monsters that we're going up against next year. what is happening? There has to be some sort of reason for keeping him. And I have my thoughts, but I don't think that is. I don't think some of it gives reason for UCLA to keep a guy who has just been very subpar this year.
So, and Jake, you mentioned it in the you've mentioned it before, and you mentioned it in the WB2 after the Cal game. You brought up Darrell, you brought up Mora. He hasn't even gotten to those their highest highs. He hasn't gotten to 10 wins. He hasn't gotten to 10 wins. I mean, if you want to justify things, he hasn't gotten to 10 wins. And why is that? Because he's had these end of the season falters that sort of put a reflection on the mediocrity of the way he's run the program on the field. And that's another reason why they could look into this and be like, why are we keeping this guy? Or that's why I feel maybe that the fan base is saying, why are we keeping this guy? He can't even get us to a level that Carl Durrell got to, who, for all intents and purposes, most people don't consider part of the UCLA coaching legacy in terms of winning, like Terry Donahue or Tommy Prothro or somebody like that, you know? So it's like, what do we do? Or Bob Toledo's best seasons, you know? Other than Neuheisel, the guys you mentioned, you know, their end of the seasons, at least their highs were high. He's not getting Chip Kelly's not getting the UCLA Bruins to those highs.
No, and something that you were mentioning, Jamaal, and that is, you know, where they started and how they finished, right? And I think that's really what I see with this Chip Kelly the last couple of years that is really, I think, made the fan base certain about what they feel, as opposed to some of these other administrations where they kind of, you know, the Durrell era certainly lingered on longer than I think any of us felt like, but it took a year in which they started, I think 2006 was his final year. No, 2007 was his last year there. And the Bruins actually started 4-1 that season, but then they ended up losing 5 out of their last 6 games. And that's when Darrell was fired. When I look at Bob Toledo, his last season, he started 4-1, but then they ended up losing 2 of their last 3 and finishing like what I think what I said they had was like a 6-6 record or something. And that's really what's been going on with Chip here. And you know, to say that Chip didn't do what Carl Durrell did as far as like getting that 10-win season, that is very true, and that's been one of the biggest things that he has squandered is his chance. Like, he basically had a layup to get to 10 wins the last 2 seasons, and he has completely squandered both of those opportunities, and that is really because of what I think is really emblematic of UCLA football under Chip, and that is losing the game you have no business losing, because he you know, they haven't had a whole lot of games where they're playing vastly superior opponents, but by the way, he hasn't really won any of those. But he certainly has had plenty of games where he's given us hope and made us feel like, oh my gosh, that they might have something here. I mean, last year they peaked out at number 9 in the country. This year they got up to 18, but it felt like just with that next win, they were going to take a giant step forward. I'm sorry, you know, and in 2021, they got to freaking 13th in the country, for goodness sakes, right? And however, those were, you know, let me give you a few of these losses that he's had in the Chip Kelly era, going all the way back to the very first game of the Chip Kelly era. What were they favored by in that opener at the Rose Bowl against Cincinnati? Anybody remember?
13.5.
Yeah, 14 points, okay? And he ends up losing that game. Now, look, that Cincinnati team turned out to be better than we thought, but still, that turns out to be the hallmark of the Kelly era, is losing games in which you are heavily favored. 2019, he was favored by a touchdown against SDSU. They ended up losing that game by 9 points. 2020, the COVID season, they lose to Stanford at the end of the season. They're almost a touchdown favorite there. And of course, you all remember the game they lost to Colorado. That was at Folsom Field, but still, there's no way anybody was banking on them losing that freaking opening game, Carl Durrell's first game there, right? But then we get into when they're actually, and those were all like when, you know, these teams weren't very good anyway. You know, they all finished, you know, sub 500 records. But even with Kelly's good teams, right? What do you remember most about the LSU game in 2021? I remember the next week when they lost at home to Fresno State as an 11.5 point favorite, right? In 2022, they lose. How much were they favored? But over the Wildcats in the Arizona game, guys. Anybody remember that one?
17 points.
19 and a half. They were 19 and a half point favorites. 19 and a half point favorites.
Mhm.
Guess what? They were only favored by 14 over Arizona State this year. They were 19 and a half point favorites over Arizona last year, and they dropped that game. They were 6-point favorites in the Tony the Tiger Bowl, and that game, there was nobody playing for Pittsburgh that game that should have given the Bruins problems. And yet, they ended up managing to come from ahead to lose that game. And then just this year alone, the Arizona game was bad enough, but at least you can understand that because Arizona turned out to be a pretty good team, and they're on the road for that game. But they have had two of the most embarrassing losses in school history this year, and that is to an Arizona State team where they were favored by 14 points, and this Cal game where they were favored by 9.5 points. And Jamaal, normally I wouldn't say it's embarrassing to lose to Cal, except for the context of they lose to Arizona State, then they kick the shit out of SC, and then they lose to Cal like they did. And they didn't just lose to Cal, they got their ass kicked to Cal, but when it was all said and done. And it's like, that to me is why there's no buzz in the fan base. They have looked so good in moments to give us hope about what they can achieve, but then we have these moments where they just look completely incompetent. And I think that's why people are really kind of out on them.
It's like Lucy with the football, It's like
absolutely over and over
that's
again.
The way you see. That's where Bruin fans are right now. They feel like every time that the LSU win, what was the win they had last? Oh, they beat Washington. They beat Utah. This year they beat Utah again, and it's like there's the football. We're gonna kick it, and then he pulls the football out from under, and they fall flat on their backs. And I think, Bruins fans deserve to be sick and tired of this kind of roller coaster situation.
So already, here I have another question for you guys. There's a lot of talk, especially last year, about DTR and Charbonnet leaving, and that being labeled as a quote-unquote, and the anarchists kept hammering this over and over again, but quote-unquote culmination year, right? I really didn't look at last year as a culmination year because of all the guys coming back. But now you look at senior year and you look at how many people walked for senior day. That was a long, long list. What do you guys think about this year being, an actual culmination year? And are there even going to be enough guys still in the program at this point to even worry about Chip being able to stay around to hold them together? I mean, what are we even talking about here? It's going to be a much different team next year, isn't it?
Oh, it's going to be it's completely different. UCLA prior to this year had hung its hat on its offense. That is nowhere to be found, and I don't see that. It'll improve, but not to where it was in 2022. And then you have potentially the Murphys, Latu, Muasau, several players in the secondary who are just going to gut this defense, which has been really good. You can't, as you said earlier, Jake, the defense did what it could given the circumstances, and in trying to compete against Oregon State and Arizona State. Not Oregon State, I'm sorry, Cal. But actually, even Oregon State too. They were put behind the 8 ball, and they had to do what they had to do, but it wasn't enough.
Yeah, they had a bad third quarter.
Losing all those guys, it's just no. This is definitely. I said this a few weeks ago that how has UCLA not been prepared for the transition away from Dorian Thompson-Robinson? And they kind of were trying to do that with Dylan Gabriel, who did a pretty decent job. But again, there was no backup. We complain about the Mora and the Durrell years about, they bring in a good quarterback, but they have no backup. That's what's happened this year.
But is it fair to say that at this point, considering where we all thought they were at the beginning of the year? I mean, we all kind of said that.
Because.
Good.
Yeah, no, like you can totally say that because look what happened. Again, UCLA has three quarterbacks, which means they have no quarterback, and there was nobody that really stood out. And unfortunately, the one guy who could get you down the field, albeit slowly, via dink and dunk, got taken out in the first drive. Maybe it's a little bit of unluckiness, but it's not good planning either. And when you don't prepare for the future or prepare a lot of guys, it's fantastic. UCLA's defense is just top notch. I wish UCLA could do this on a yearly basis, but that's the thing. Have they recruited enough to fill those spots for so many that might be gone next year? I don't think so.
And I just think it's unfair. I think Jake and I have been begging for there to be a defense, some cohesion on defense, some competence on defense, and we finally get it. And now all these guys are going to be gone, probably, either through transfer portal or just graduation and going on to the next level. It just seems so unfair, and they're going to have a tough time going into next season, new conference, different opponents, different circumstances, the travel, all that stuff, where it's like, it just seems unfair to Bruins fans to have to go from what I'm assuming is really kind of sadly the height of the Chip Kelly era with these last few seasons. I mean, getting to bowl games, but not really enjoying the end of it. And then kind of going into this situation, which is going to be a bear, the schedule, the travel, the attrition, those kind of things, where it's like next season is just bleak.
Well, I mean, how bleak is it? Like, is it bleak to think that they're going to be suffering through a 500 season? Or are you like expecting another meltdown going back to 3-4 and 3-9 and 4-8? That's really like, or are we just like, this is just going to be so, Kelly took 4 seasons to get to 500. And then he spent another 2 seasons at 500, and so now are we just going to go forward as a 500 team? I think that's kind of like the purgatory that UCLA fans are kind of fearing at this point. But looking at how the roster may be changing, and looking at how their ability to make up the gap in the transfer portal without with the changing landscape of NIL and all that stuff happening, like. It might not be, it's probably more bleak than that. I mean, what are you guys thinking about just all of those factors?
Well, yeah, I think that's it. I think people are like, wait a minute, people are like, okay, I'm tired of being at 500, but crap almighty, next year might be, the bottom falling out because of all these forces converging on them, new conference, change in schedule, the attrition of the roster, possible attrition of the roster. The same questions: can he find a quarterback who can mold with this offense? It's just, will he be able to coach in the Big Ten when it feels like he can't even coach in the Pac-12? I just think that's what I think it is. People are like, they don't want to get on the roller coaster anymore, but they certainly don't want to deal with the drop, and that's what they're expecting, is the big drop.
Yeah, I'm still dubious about how great the Big Ten is, by the way. Just there's so many teams, and a lot of them suck. So I don't think UCLA is really shifting as far as their position in the conference. It's going to be pretty much the same as it was in the Pac-12 relative to the other teams. But it's still not great. It's not anything to celebrate. It's not anything to be, happy about, because they're still, a long way from the top, unfortunately. But I am right there with you as far as like finding something to be excited about, as people who talk about the Bruins. Like, there's nothing that's exciting about this offseason because we're just going to have to listen to people complain about Chip Kelly still being there. And that's not fun to think about. And then as far as like what the actual, what the buzz will be for the football season next year, it's just not there anymore with how this current administration is. So with that being said, though, what do you think would have to happen? Is there even, or what scenario would have to unfold, and how long would it take for the Kelly administration to win fans back? Considering, we saw how quickly it kind of turned around. It was building after he turned in season to 3-9 and 4-8, and then 3-4, and then pretty much they win that LSU game in the second game of the season. in his fourth season, and then that's when kind of like the hopes are rekindled, and that's been up and down kind of since then. But what do you think would have to happen for fans to buy back into Chip at this point? Is it even possible? Because right now he will be the Bruins head coach.
Can I start, Jamaal, if you don't mind? I think it's. I think you like someone, whenever they got the opportunity to actually ask them to go, what exactly are you going to do? And, don't beat around the bush with your well, we got to do this. We got to get better at this. No, what is your game plan to save this program, to be above an 8-win season, which, yeah, sure, that's fantastic if he makes it in the bowl game. But what are you going to do exactly, not hypothetically, exactly, to bring people back? Because there are already people talking about pulling their WAF donations. They're you're not contributing to NIL. We have a freaking banner above UCLA, which is kind of embarrassing. I can see the purpose for it, but it's also embarrassing to actually have to do that to get some attention.
I hate the dumb banners.
And the other thing too is what I alluded to is why are they keeping Kelly? And I'm just going to make this really quickly. I think for a few things. I think the buyout is the biggest thing. I think the other thing is the fact that they waited too late, and Jonathan Smith is gone, and Jed Fish signed an extension. I think they also want to try to keep Danton Lynn as long as possible, and I think they want to keep some kind of unity within the team. But ultimately, like I alluded to earlier, all of that combined, is that enough to go? Is that enough to weigh against firing him? If you lose Danton Lynn, that I think that is the toughest blow. But what else has Chip Kelly brought? Not much. And I think when the media gets a chance to question him again, ask him, what exactly are you going to do to make this team better so that you get the fans behind you again and you actually get a winning program? True. This is a winning season technically because he's above 500, but it's not satisfactory. Not at all, especially compared to what he came into UCLA saying, that he wanted friendships, championships, and whatever else that stuff is. He hasn't brought any of that. So what now? Why should we believe you, Chip Kelly and Martin Jarman?
I mean, I think the ship has kind of sailed. I don't know that there's anything that he could. I mean, short of like the biggest turnaround. I mean, I don't know, college football playoff, winning the Big Ten the first year. I don't know that. I mean, really, it's one of those things where it's like, even though the program doesn't look like it's hit rock bottom, because you can look at the record, and if he does win, like Mike said, if he wins the bowl game, he's got 8 wins. It's not the best. It's one less than last year, but it's it's better than what my school is doing. And 6-6 is just as mediocre to me as what's happening with the Bruins, except the expectations are different. So, I mean, it would have to be some sort of miracle season where, like, nobody saw this coming, and the next thing you know, it's New Year's Day, and UCLA is one of the teams that's playing. But I mean, what are the chances that's happening? I mean, there's a better chance of Jessica Alba dumping Cash Warren and coming to live with me out here in the desert.
You turn her away, though, I'm sure.
You do have a sweet spot, though.
Yeah, I mean, we got a pool. We got a pool and a playground.
You have an inactive missile silo near you, so there's that.
Yeah, exactly. We can play. We can play find the missile, but other than that, I mean, really, I mean, you're just
in my silo.
You're asking for gold or manna falling from heaven. I mean, that's really what it is. It's like you're talking about the wonder season. And I mean, the likelihood of that happening is just slim to none. I honestly think the ship has sailed. I really do think, if I can just jump on what Mike said there about why they're keeping, I think they're just waiting for December 4th, 2024, when, it's a no-fault divorce, basically, and everybody will go their separate ways, and UCLA doesn't have to give up some of that money in order to keep Chip around, and hope that, I don't know, maybe they fall into a Dan Lanning situation or some top coordinator from one of these top 5 teams decides I want to go out to the West Coast and turn UCLA around. But I don't know, to be honest, in terms of what the future holds in another year of Chip Kelly.
Goddamn Oregon lucked out with that shit.
Did he? I mean, he's the best. I mean, somehow he turned Georgia's Georgia's needed to stop relying on a run and shoot offense, and one of the best defenses in college, and won 2 straight national titles. I mean, I don't know. I don't know who's out there, and that's probably I want to say maybe that's another thing, Mike and Jake. Maybe that's this time that we don't know who's out there this time.
Yeah.
There's no. Who would be, I know Jake has asked us a couple times, who do you want? It's like, I don't know that Jonathan Smith and even Jed the Fish, it's like, is that really the standard to get UCLA out of this muck? I don't know. I mean, who's
Isn't Art Briles available?
Yeah, exactly.
Is Rocky Long available?
Is Jimbo Fisher willing to work for pennies since he got that big buyout?
Hey, buddy.
I'm just saying, it's like I think that's part of the calculations. Like, there is no supposed home run out there at the moment where this program is going to turn around and start contending in the Big Ten and contend nationally. Certainly not in name. I mean, there's really only one name, and nobody wants to hear it, and that's Urban Meyer. But other than that, I don't know what
we've already been through a whole divorce, debutante.
Right, sure. I know, but that's the thing, right? This time around, and that might be the calculation for Jarman. It's like, you guys can complain all you want, but who would you?
That's
like
what
me
I
to
could see.
hire?
That's what. Yeah.
Well,
Who
I think
would you
that
like me to hire.
Look, I think the complaint that most people have about Kelly at this point is that he is underachieving at a school where, look, it's not the football blue blood that, a job opening at like SC or Georgia or, Alabama would be. But you really if you're born on third base by getting the SC or the Alabama job, you're getting a ground rule double easy if you're at UCLA, right? I mean, it's not a hard job to be pretty good at. And even if they are, they haven't hit the highest of highs in the last 50 years. I'm talking about, they got one national championship all the way back in the 50s. They had a string of huge success in the 80s leading into the 90s. They were as successful as, they were a top 15 program for 20 years pretty much.
Right.
And
yes.
and they were a top 15 program for a large chunk of their history, right? And they've just been nowhere near that for 2 decades with a couple glimmers of success. So anyway, that's a long way of saying that people are more upset that Chip Kelly has had these terrible finishes, has had these games where he's underachieved and come from ahead to lose games, inexplicable games. And that just all points to me of like, they don't need a shitbag like Urban Meyer. They don't need the hottest coach in the country to come and coach at UCLA for UCLA fans to buy into the program to start building something, right? You just need someone who is going to make the most out of what you have. And to a degree,
Recruit.
That's one of the things that we'll just recruit at a basic, at a decent level. There was the thing that was out there today. I don't remember where it was, but for all of the years up until what was his name? Bartu published this. For the 20 years before Chip Kelly, UCLA was at like a top 20 recruiting school, and then with Kelly, they're like 35, right? So that's just one of those basic things. You do that, you're probably going to do better, But also, for those of us that were buying into Chip Kelly for so long, we were like, you know what? He's not going to have the same recruiting chops as everybody else, but the guys that come into this program are going to leave as better football players, and there's going to be quality attained through player development. And for the most part, that is absolutely true. When you look at all of the guys that are in the NFL now that played under Kelly and the guys that will continue to go to the NFL off of these teams that Kelly has coached, that's a big point in his favor, right? This is a program where guys come in, generally get better at doing the things they're doing, this year's quarterback situation, notwithstanding. However, that all points to me of why are you underachieving so much if you have these guys that are, whether you recruited them or whether you developed them, you're still not getting there on the field. And so going back to the original point, you don't need the most conflicted, big hire out there, the guy that has baggage or whatever. You don't need that. You could just get somebody that's pretty good at coaching football, and they're probably going to do pretty darn good at UCLA, right? Better than what it's been. And that's been the problem.
Yeah, and I agree. And Jake, and those programs you mentioned, yes, they may be blue bloods, but they also have had like 20 years out in the wilderness, and then somehow seemingly have turned things around and had renaissances, all of them, even Alabama. I mean, there was a point where UCLA was better than all three of those programs, and I guess that's my point. Is like, that's why I advocate. Maybe you should start thinking like them and saying, yeah, we don't need Chip Kelly around to continue to be mediocre. Let's find the guy who's going to turn us around. And I just wish they'd take that chance. That's my whole point. It's like, why can't they just take that chance? If it's the money, then I seriously don't understand why you can't find $8 million. Like you said, UCLA was a top 15 program for so many years, certainly a lot of years of the beginning of my life. And even before that, it just seems just nuts that they can't get to that level again, where they're a top 15 program consistently, and occasionally a national championship type program, like they were even in Bob Toledo era, because they were. I mean, they were playing on New Year's Day, even if it didn't turn out great with that Rose Bowl, but they were playing on New Year's Day, and they were playing on New Year's Day the year before that, and they were beating quality teams, and it's just not happening with Chip Kelly. And we'll keep hammering that, but for whatever reason, this administration has its reasons.
All right,
he's going to be their leader going.
Well, short and sweet. I asked the question, what will it take for Kelly to win the fans back? On the flip side of that, Jamaal, I think you've already kind of said what you think about this, but you can reiterate it if you want. What would it take to actually have the UCLA administration part ways with Chip Kelly, right? What do you think that's got to be?
If they didn't do it after losing to Cal and after losing Arizona and Arizona State, I mean, to be honest with you, I think it comes down to the money, and they're just waiting for December 4th of 2024, right? Because that's when not the incentive clause, what do you call it? The buyout shrinks, or does it just disappear? I forget which one it is.
It shrinks.
It shrinks, right? But then at some point it does I guess it disappeared 2025. So I'm guessing that it would have to shrink, and that's by half, right? It goes from like 8 million to 4 million.
So you think that the only, Jamaal, you're saying that the only reason they have him at all is just because of the buyout, and if there was no buyout, he would already been fired. That's what your thing is?
Yeah, I mean, that's the only logical thing I can think of, is that
I would think it's part of it
too much.
Not part of it. I mean, all of it.
No, I think it's all of it. I mean, honestly, like I said, if I were to say part of it is like, well, maybe there isn't a coach that they think is out there, and then all of it would be, it's the money. It's the money. I mean,
Mike, what do you think has to happen for them to part ways with Chip?
Like I said, I think I do think it's more than just the buyout. It is several other factors. Available coaches, keeping Lynn, trying to keep some of this recruiting class, which is not great, together. But to part ways with Chip, like, I don't even know. At this point, it's like there's so much history behind why, he's improved. Prior to this year, he's improved the team's winning percentage, but this year it's like, this was a step back. This is definitely a step back. And if you're stepping back from what was not elite, and that was the goal, like, why are you staying with it? And I think it's just the fact to where the UCLA just really bottoms out. And I don't think that Chip Kelly isn't going to try. Like, I think he's going to try, try like crazy to keep this team together and keep it relevant. But I don't see it going into the Big Ten. And I think just what's it going to take for UCLA to fire Chip Kelly? Chip Kelly continuing to be Chip Kelly.
Yeah.
You know, I sent you that clip earlier of that. I guess it's a famous video, but I only saw it today of this Philadelphia Eagles fan, walking out of the stadium saying that that was the first time he's embarrassed. And basically it came down to, Chip Kelly, you got rid of these guys because they're not Chip Kelly players. Well, you're not doing what you're supposed to with the players you brought in. So fix it. Can he fix it? I don't think so.
No, and I think, I think that's, once again, goes back to the core of why guys are so dissatisfied with how this has gone, because, he's kind of like he's been able to do whatever he wanted. And, there have been some highs, that last year, the offense from the last few years up until this year was spectacular and some of the best in school history. The defense this year was really, really, really good, but nothing is quite matched up. And it just hasn't worked out, and it's ended horribly more often than it hasn't. And, that's where we're at. I will say this, we talked about how there's going to be a mass exodus from the program just from guys that have aged out or that are eligible to leave because they're seniors or redshirt seniors or whatever, right? So there's going to be a big change in the program regardless. That's coming. That's why we're kind of labeling this as the true culmination season. However, something that has been a hallmark of Kelly's teams at UCLA so far is they have brought in a lot more transfers and guys that have left. It seems like once guys have gotten here, they've been pretty happy with how things are going. And I think part of that goes with what, Mike, you pointed out. They've gotten better every year, even if they dug themselves a giant hole at the beginning. However, this is the first year where we can't say that. This is the first year where Kelly's win percentage is not going to improve. This is the first year where it seems like there was a lot of tearing at the seams as far as the defense was so good and the offense struggled so mightily, and all of the talent they brought in on offense seemed to be completely underutilized. So what I'm saying is it looks like we're going to be dealing with Kelly next season in the first year of the Big Ten. And I'm trying to think of ways that as fans and as people have to talk about this, our stance may soften a little bit as far as our optimism going into next season or just getting ready to tolerate next season, however it's going to be. One of the things that I will look for that will allow me to soften a little bit on my stance, on the Kelly era is if it seems like everybody's going to leave in the next month and a half, and there's going to be nobody left, and it's going to be just like at the end of the Mora era going into the Kelly era, where it's just like mass exodus, right? I'm curious to see if these guys that can stay around will stay around, because we've already seen, Keegan Jones and Cam Brown just declared in the last couple of days that they're going to the transfer portal, right, Mike? I am curious to see.
Yeah, they also had a 4-star running back decommit from UCLA 2 days ago, and he just committed to SMU.
Yeah, and as far as the commitments go, to me, you could spin that as normal recruiting stuff, or you could spin that as an indictment of what's going on at UCLA now. But I really am curious about the guys that are actually in the program. Once guys actually get here, it seems like they have cotton pretty well to what Kelly is selling them on. But what about the guy, what about this year now, where it didn't go kind of as they wanted it to? So I don't know. I mean, if he can seemingly keep that environment together, then that'll at least make me think a little better of what's going on. But I don't know. I got to see it first.
I mean, that makes sense. I mean, if players are willing to stick up to him or stick up for him, and it's not this mass exodus of the guys who can still stick around. We're not talking about seniors, lost their eligibility or kids who graduate, but guys who can stay in the program. Correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't there kind of like a rumor that Dante Moore, because he wasn't getting any playing time and Garbage was the starter, that he might jump into the transfer portal, and if that doesn't happen, or
he'd be like Exhibit A, I guess. And I'm thinking about guys that I don't know
sticking around.
Yeah, and I don't know about guys like Sturdivant or any of these other guys, like how much or how can they even, do a double transfer and all that stuff. I don't know. I haven't looked into it that much, but I am curious to see what that is, and then also, in the changing landscape of how the transfer portal is working and what you have to get guys to transfer to you, how competitive is Kelly going to be in this market as opposed to how he was in the last few years? So, I mean, that's all part of the growing pessimism about his whole administration, is that he won't be able to compete like he has in the past, and it won't be the gap that he can exploit. At Oregon, he exploited the, making everybody go fast, and changing the game in that regard. Then we got to UCLA. The little success he did have recruiting was by, selling the professional, style of the program, and like, this is where grown-ups come to play, and this is where guys that just want to play and be smart come to play. But that's probably not gonna fly completely in an era where now everybody's looking to play football, but also to get paid a little bit, which by the way, if they're allowed to, then why the heck not? But is UCLA prepared for that whole thing too? And a lot of people, that's one of the reasons why everybody's depressed, because they're like, no, UCLA is not prepared for that. So I guess we'll have to see. All right, guys, I don't know. You guys seem to think this has been a listenable podcast. I kind of the other opinion. I think we should fire ourselves along with Chip Kelly, but it is what it is.
I think everybody
Jake,
was
don't
happy
sell
to hear
yourself
about-
short. Everybody has a bad day, Jake.
That's true, and this is one of
I
them.
think everybody
It's okay.
else-
Do you think doctors have a 100% winning percentage when saving lives, Jake?
No, and if we were
No,
surgeons,
they don't. They don't.
if we were surgeons, this
Yeah, you
podcast
hope-
would be
you hope
DOA.
so, bud.
DOA. All right.
Jamaal does.
And we're
I
not,
don't know about
and
the
we're not bringing back the Doomsday Bell. It's not there yet. The Doomsday Bell is not on us. Back on UCLA.
Are you sure? I'm pretty sure. It's Doomsday. It's the
Yeah, I don't
apocalypse.
know.
Anywho's, we do have a little bit of listener feedback. I'll get to the calls in a few minutes, but I do have an email from a great listener, and his name is Chewy. He writes, "Good afternoon, guys. This is Chewy from Long Beach, the person that tagged you in my pregame craft beer pictures before what I hope to be a good Bruin game. Mikey, we see those tags. You said it was a Hoppy. Who is it?
Papa Hoppy 72.
There we
on
go.
the
Thank you very
Instagram.
much. I hope this email finds you well and that you all have had a good holiday break. Mine was fine. Chewy, I got a little sick. Other than that, it's been fine. First off, I want to say that I love your show and look forward to listening to it and the additional content every week. We appreciate you. Also wanted to let Mike know that drinking Firestone Walker is okay, as it is Stone who makes the crappy Trojan beer. So it's okay to enjoy those Mine Haze brews from Firestone,
Nice.
as they are from Paso and not from San Diego like Stone. Also, Stone is owned by Sapporo, who killed off Anchor Brewing, so nuts to them. So, Mike, does that all make sense to you?
Oh, totally. Yeah, no, I love the Firestone. They have one of my favorites, Union Jack, which I absolutely love.
Yes.
But yes, no, Stone is the one. I think they're San Diego based, but
that's what you just said, yeah.
Yeah, no. Thank you, Papa Hoppy.
Okay, so he goes on to say, so we have come to the end of the regular season, and wow, what a way to go. After the Arizona loss, the Godfather was coming about UCLA playing checkers and not chess. I think it's more of a game of chutes and ladders. The great highs, especially after beating SC, although I did not see Caleb cry this time. I know that was very sad for me too, Chewy. To the lows that were the ASU and Cal games, to the what could have been in the trip to Salt Lake. The season started with so much promise, with a full QB room, as a new era was to start after DTR. Boy, this was a letdown. We went from wanting more, to, might I suggest a new drop, a Road Duran no mas. A season that was like Smokey says in the Friday movie, we never have two things that match. This year we had an amazing D and a lackluster O, and it's like Kool-Aid with no sugar, peanut butter with no jelly, ham with no burger. If only like in that movie, Chip would have been fired on his day off. But now it looks like he will be sticking around unless he decides to walk away at a par on his record. I'm conflicted, as we do need a reset, but at what cost? And who would be exciting enough to shake down people for money and recruits from the high school, JUCO, and transfer portal? Keeping Chip will hopefully also keep a glimmer of hope, which is Lynn staying around the defensive scheme, unless it's all smoke and mirrors, which I doubt. A good D can do wonders in the Big Ten. Just look at Iowa. While I do not want to watch Iowa, nor do I want the Bruins to be lackluster, this could be a start. I think that Chip's downfall has only been his inability to change, but also his loyalty to folks. He did not make changes to his D coordinator until they quit, and he stuck it out with ETR when he could have had Dylan Gabriel leading the offense. Remember when that guy was ready to attend until DTR decided to come back for his Van Wilder super-duper spectacular senior year? That's another what could have been, but enough about the past. Let's look forward to the basketball shows, but really, how excited are you for what is to come? Do you think Chip would walk? He signs off by saying, thanks for your time. I'm all in on this show. I don't know why you'd be on this show in particular because this show has been terrible. We apologize in advance. But he also says, so take my $2. Here's Chewy taking
$2.
$2. And if you do have some extra shirts in the studio, I would trade you a 4-pack of craft beer for Mike in exchange for a double XL. This way, you'll be getting something for the merch.
Send him 4.
Yeah. Go Bruins. Hopefully, we can roll the dice and hit the square that sends us up the ladder. Chewy, that was a great email. I apologize for my butchering in the reading of it. But
Jake, can I address something really quickly? Number one,
what?
Chewy, thank you for that.
Yes.
And Jake, not every show has to be 100%. This could be our Jordan flu show.
No.
I personally have thought that this is good content. Just because we don't feel great doesn't mean we're not putting out good content. So, Jake, you're better than this. You know this.
I agree, and this
Jamaal,
is absolutely
kicking ass tonight.
Yeah, I agree, Mike.
I think Chewy wanted to hear from me and Mike Calbears. That's what he was waiting for. Actually, can I just say I love the Friday references? That was pretty good.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Chewy, if I do have a double XL, of course it's yours, and I will be sending it to you. I'll get a hold of you to get your address.
Send them too, Jake.
Yeah, and Mike, for the record, this is absolutely our ASU at the Rose Bowl podcast right now. So like we're like 20-point favorites, and we're underwhelming.
Jake, not every show it has to like come on. You saw the movie was it Memento? That was depressing as hell. Still great though, right? I wouldn't say it's
I love that show.
You know, I wouldn't say everybody had a great time making that movie, but terrific. Then you see Wayne's World. I'm sure everybody had a blast making that great movie that everybody knows about. Jake, it's about the content. Don't you're doing yourself a disservice, sir.
Thanks for the pep talk.
Buck up.
Thanks, buddy.
You're an offensive lineman. You've told me about football. You're the man, Jake.
Thanks, Mike. That really touches me. And Jamaal, F you. So
yeah.
With that being said, let's bring this to a merciful end. We're gonna get to listener feedback right now for calls. I'll do it. Well, actually, hold on. Let me look and see if I actually have any calls. But really quickly, Chewy, thank you very much, and thank you for sending the pics on the Instagram. You know what? It just hit me right now. I might want to, I don't know if you're on the Twitter, but I might just repost them on the Twitter just to have more fan interaction. So thank you very much. All right, good job, Mike. And once again, thank you, Chewy, for the email, and I will send you a shirt if I have one. Now, I got a couple more calls to take, which I can't play for Jamaal and Mike at the same time. So I'll play those, and then we'll come back for What's Brewing with You. So Mike, Jamaal, be patient for a moment, okay?
Hey, this is Alex from Inglewood. What more needs to be said? I hope this is not too late of a call. It's Monday morning. I just needed a couple days to process what has happened. What's funny is that me and Chip Kelly have the same birthday. So Saturday night, had a party with some friends and family. And the last thing I wanted to do was turn on the UCLA game and just watch it. So throughout the night, just casually looking at my phone, just watching this disaster play out in real time. And this even blew away my wildest expectations. I just never imagined after the effort put into the USC game that they would come and lay a stinker like that. Just crazy to me. But I guess in the long run, it's better this way because I really don't know how anyone can rationalize keeping Chip. And you could rationalize it like a week ago. So many people were kind of back on the bandwagon, or at least that there's no way they can fire him after winning against USC, I wasn't of that opinion, but there was plenty of people who thought, okay, maybe, if they win against Cal, then they win another bowl game, we're talking 9-4, which could be enough to save himself, barring, Not projecting, of course, to next season, which looks not very good. But yeah, still Monday morning, complete radio silence from UCLA, complete silence about his future. So I have no idea what's going to happen. And if they do kind of try and keep it going, that's just crazy to me. I just can't fathom this occurring. So anyway, go Bruins. Hope we can make the Independence Bowl. That's what we're looking at right now. Not even the Gronk Bowl. We missed out on the Gronk Bowl, I think. Have a good day, guys.
Thanks, Alex. And yeah, we're still in that holding pattern, aren't we? And since you made the call, it actually has been announced that they're keeping him, which is what we've been talking about for an hour. So it really does make me wonder what can be done to get any buzz back for the program, because I think that's really what's missing. I mean, there are things that Kelly does well as far as like, the professional nature of the program and the guys coming in getting a little bit better and all that stuff. But all those things that we could point to as pluses are completely negated now by just the crippling losses and the lack of people at the Rose Bowl and the vocal folks out for Chip Kelly's head at this point and the banners flying over in the sky. It's just all ick. And how can you get back the buzz from that? I have no idea. I'm remembering the end of the Durrell era, and it was every bit as much like this. I'm remembering the end of the Toledo era, and it was, similar to this, right? The Neuheisel era was just kind of hopeless from the get-go. There was really no peak to that at all. But I don't know. I don't know what to tell you, man. We're right there with you, and thanks for calling. And it's always good hearing from you, Alex. We got one other call.
Hey guys, the Crispy Bruin. Wow. Just wow. Just got off of work, saw the Bro article saying that Chip's going to be retained for next year, which was not on my bingo card for how this week would go. I was super confident that we wouldn't have to deal with the Chipster going into next year, but here we are. And I can't. I've been on the roller coaster the past 3 weeks. The ASU lost, the SC win, now the Cal loss. And I'm not going to let Chip hurt me anymore. I'm not going to, I can't. I can't comprehend the decision making in the Chase Center right now. Just incomprehensible. That's the only word I can think of at this moment. So yeah, just nothing about this prospective team next year makes me want to open myself up to get hurt again. So I'm not. I'm out. I'll still listen to the podcast. I'll still watch the games from home. But no. Make the change, please. Please? Because you're just losing more fans for it at this point. And it just doesn't make sense. All right. Thanks, guys. Just instant reaction. Bye.
Thanks, Crispy. And it is funny because just a couple weeks ago after the ASU loss, my 7-minute, weird postmodern sprockets artsy fartsy podcast was at least half the product of Crispy giving me this drop to build the whole thing around.
Goodbye. Losing my mind. Goodbye.
That was him saying goodbye, we thought, to Chip Kelly after that terrible ASU loss. And, it turned out not to be that way because, of course, they go on to give him the vote of confidence and he beats the crap out of SC. But then now, Crispy saying just goodbye to UCLA football from your end. And I can't say I blame you, brother. I mean, I really can't. I'm trying to think about what it's going to be like doing podcasts about UCLA football in the offseason this year. And unless something dramatically changes, it is going to be some rough sledding for your boy here. So good luck. All right, so that's done with. Now let's bring this show to a merciful end with What's Brewing with You.
What's brewing with you? You ask me. What's brewing with me? Yeah. What's brewing with you? What's brewing with me?
Jamaal, you won. What's wrong with you?
Happy, I guess, I don't know if I said it on the last podcast, but happy Thanksgiving to everybody. Hope everybody had a good one. Obviously, you two got sick, so sorry about that. But to all our listeners, I hope you had a good holiday, good few days off.
So I didn't get a freaking pecan pie from you.
Sorry. Yeah, Jamaal Calendars, an offshoot of Marie Calendars, could not deliver this year. Sorry. But yeah, I hosted 12 people at our house. My mom came into town, and so she visited us in Arizona for the first time. She's very excited about us settling into our new home and neighborhood and all that. But I cooked a 17-pound turkey. I made a stuffing, Southwestern chorizo stuffing that everybody liked. And of course, the pies. I made a pecan pie and a sweet potato pie. So if our regular listeners are interested, they can check out my Twitter. I posted that stuff. And might I recommend for anybody who's looking into making a turkey, look up the Julia Child way. It includes using cheesecloth while cooking the turkey to keep it moist, and it really worked. And the turkey came out golden brown. So look that up. It's the Julia Child way of making a turkey. And so yeah, that's what was brewing with me this past weekend. Mike, what's brewing with you?
I always look forward to Thanksgiving, and this one sucked for many reasons, which I don't want to get into. But the main one is that I actually got sick. Since my mom passed away 3 years ago, I took over a heavy part of making dinner, and albeit it's more the vegan side, I still took pride in doing like the mashed potatoes, the vegetables, the pies, all the secondary stuff. This year, my sister and we said like, hey, let's do it together. So there was less off my shoulders. So even still, woke up on Thursday, ready to bake, had my coffee, just doing stuff, and I was just feeling weird all day. And I'm like, what the hell's going on? Sure enough, started getting like a head cold, or I don't even know if it was just allergies or head cold. But this is my favorite meal of the year, and I get there and we're having fun, hanging out with my sister and my dad and nephew and the family, and we're like, hey, what do you want to see? My kids are, they always ask me, hey, can you recommend a movie you like from when you grew up? And there's very few. But we were like, my dad and I was like, dude, Trains, Planes, and Automobiles. And although there are parts we had to, skip through, just fun doing that with them and doing the whole Thanksgiving, but actually eating, I couldn't breathe. And I'm like, just trying to breathe through my mouth, every 5 seconds after chewing. So it was just a bit rough. And then this is a positive, but a positive turned into a negative. But I said last week, my girls joined the basketball team. Well, we had an entire week to practice. I think we went on last Sunday, the Sunday before Thanksgiving. I took them out to play basketball, just showing them fundamentals. Literally, the first action I had, I took a step to show them how to do like a bounce pass, pulled my goddamn calf. And then I re-injured it going down some steps at the Rose Bowl. So it was just a mess. It was just a mess. But it showed me, you know what? Things still aren't that bad. Okay. Yeah, sure, it sucked, but things can get better. It was actually still a really good dinner, and I had a great time showing my girls different parts of basketball and getting into that. So, it was up and down, but it was a bit of a challenge. But Jake, how are you? How are you feeling? You've been PG all podcasts long, so I need you to bring down the happiness. So, what are you doing, dude?
Mike, real quick. Wait, Jake, Mike, real quick. I also watched Planes, Trains, and Automobiles literally after Thanksgiving.
I love it.
It's the best Thanksgiving movie. Yeah.
Yes.
Gotta watch it.
Thanksgiving needs more movies and songs and stuff like that. I mean, obviously, it's no Christmas. Nobody's, Christmas, but I love that movie. It is just a gem.
Yep.
Jake, what's wrong with you? Here we go.
No, I'm not going to play the whole theme song, but it is funny that my What's Bruin turns out to be the fact that I watched Planes, Trains, Automobiles for the first time in many years, and I didn't realize, because it's been so long since I watched it, I didn't even realize it was a Thanksgiving movie, but now it's going to be my Thanksgiving movie going forward, because it had been so long since I've seen it. And of course I liked it when I watched it, but just for one reason or another, that particular Steve Martin movie or that particular John Candy movie hadn't made it into my rotation very much. But watched it on Thursday. No, it would have been probably Friday. I don't know when I watched it. Right, Wednesday night or whatever I watched it. But watched it with Megan and Sarah, and we had a blast watching it, and it was great. And it will be in the rotation now as my Thanksgiving movie of record. So yeah, isn't that fun?
Can I add something really quickly? It's funny because like I look at ratings too, and usually when I see a movie with my kids, I try to see it beforehand so I know what to skip or or whatnot. It's like, oh, close your eyes, that situation, being a parent with movies. But it was so funny. My oldest, Violet, she was like, Dad, this is rated R. And I'm like,
Megan said the same thing.
Yeah,
and she's 19.
I was like, oh, this came out before PG-13, didn't it? And he was like, you have to explain sometimes. Okay, honestly, this would be a PG-13 movie. And we're going through it, and the whole, those aren't pillows. Not horrible, but come on, that's comedy gold that everybody knows. But when they came to the whole,
the rent-a-car,
the car rental scene.
That's why it's got the R. It's got the R because of that. That's the R.
Yes, that was quite a few F-bombs.
Oh God, love it.
Well, let's be fair though. The ratings are wildly weird. Like back when they first started PG-13, there was a what was it? The Man with One Red Shoe. No, not The Man with the Red Shoe. There's another movie. It was a Gene Wilder movie with Kelly LeBrock in it, and it had like full frontal nudity in it.
The Woman in Red.
Woman in Red. Thank you.
Woman in Red.
And that was a PG-13 movie, right? So it's like
time, but you look back, and it's like, wow, that is this disturbing movie. This is about a guy who's actively looking to go cheat on his wife.
Yeah, it was a bonkers movie. There's a lot of weird movies. But anyways, we're off the rails now, but it's time to, like I said, end this one. The title of this show will be, like UCLA football, this mediocre podcast is not representative of our usual standard, and we do seek to always be improved. That's what this podcast will be called. Does that sound good? Something like that?
That's a mouthful. Sure.
All right. I don't know. We'll see what it is. Guys, all right. I don't know. Like the next thing to come up is we're going to find out what dumb bowl game the Bruins are going to, like Independence Bowl, whatever. We're going to find out if the buyout being cut in half causes the UCLA administration to change their mind on Chip Kelly, I guess. I don't know. We're going to have some basketball. Don't the Bruins play the Highlanders coming up soon there, Mikey?
Sure.
There can only be one. They play UC Riverside.
Yeah.
Don't they play UC Riverside, I think, sometime soon?
Yes, they do. And, I get confused because the women's team played Riverside like 2 weeks ago.
All right.
And by the way, shout out to the number 2 women's basketball team who got their highest ever ranking, especially after beating the crap out of number 6 UConn last week. God, damn, that was an amazing win.
Yes.
Sorry.
It makes us all very happy.
To be as biased as possible.
Yeah.
Man, that was a great win.
Yes.
Anyway, 6-0. 5 players are in the top 20 in scoring in the Pac-12. It's looking good.
That's good. At least there's something going right. That's wonderful. All right, whatever. We're gonna end this, and we'll come back at some point with a show, or maybe we won't. I don't know. I mean, honestly, really, we'll see. That's about all I can promise. But Jamaal, it's always good to hear from you. Mikey, I hope you feel better just like I'm hopefully starting to feel better. And until next time, I guess, go Bruins.
Good evening.
Smoke 'em if you got 'em.
That was the What's Bruin show.
Try us tomorrow. Same bat time, same bat channel.
It's got to be in or out, Mom. In or out. Well, I need the door closed.
Thank you for your cooperation.
Dude, bro, we play some ball on the West Coast.
The final word is boob.
And in conclusion, Chip Kelly must be stopped. Go Bruins.